Hey, all right. So we are in week six, moving right along, uh, more than halfway done. So try to keep doing the best that you can. If you need to go back and make up some work, that's fine, not a problem. But this week we're going to look at cognitivism a little bit more deeply. I'm sure you've seen it kind of coming to fruition in the previous module when we get into the writing process. And then, of course, when we start to move away from locating truth outside of the individual and we turn to locating truth inside the individual from expressivism theory, you can see how a focus on the internal states of the individual led the writing process movement to applications of cognition and psychology, etc. So this week you'll read some of the key articles that basically um, grounded and solidified the cognitive movement. Flower and Hayes is that article is probably one of the articles that you'll want to read a little bit more carefully. Um, they basically establish the theory and the foundation for cognitive composition. And a lot of their principles and ideas are still, important today, like a focus on non-linear writing, realizing that we don't think in a straight line, that we operate and think recursively, where we move backwards and forwards. And, a lot of times we just draft ideas and they don't necessarily lead anywhere. Writing is just a highly complex process, which eventually, when we get deep into post-process theory, you'll realize there is no way to ever define a universal process. It doesn't exist. You can never write the same in the same way at the same time for the same audience for the same purpose, etc. There will always be nuances. But again, we're moving towards that. So this week we'll kind of establish the peak of cognitive theory. I kind of consider Flower and Hayes' article kind of the peak of cognitivism and composition. And then again, you'll read Mike Rose, who basically starts to take down cognitivism. But again, we got a lot of good stuff from cognitive theory. But the biggest problem is who's defining what moves people are making in their mind when they write, and who's deciding how valuable or not so valuable those moves are. That's a little bit of a tricky process. So Mike Rose, his piece basically starts to take down cognitivism a little bit and pushes back on this idea that you can strip an individual from all the different contexts that they operate within, all the social constraints, the political, cultural, social forces that are not only operating on the writing itself, but the individual who does the writing. So sort of two layers there. And that's how we keep moving towards this social epistemic sort of new rhetoric built around social constructivism, which is the theory that we humans construct reality and knowledge with language and each other, negotiating, what constitutes facts and knowledge, with language. So again, this week we'll kind of set up cognitivism and the peak cognitive movement and composition, and then we'll start to take it down a little bit and move away from that. And the biggest problem again was, you're trying to basically decide intellectual cognitive abilities based on linguistic moves or style, and that didn't work. And then, of course, the biggest issue is that it stripped away all those really important things that social epistemic and new rhetoricians kind of bring to the forefront. So this is a good module for kind of realizing the height of cognitivism, and then it start to push back on it, and then we'll get deeper into that pushback next module, and then we'll keep moving forward and talk about how a lot of the theories and approaches of teaching composition, are really built around this sort of social epistemic, social constructivist, theoretical approach to understanding writing, knowledge making, thinking, etc. So this week you'll read, I think I have 4 pieces for you. You can skim a few of those. Maybe again read Flower and Haze a little bit more carefully, and Rose a little bit more carefully. And I'm just checking my notes here to make sure I've covered everything. Berlin also does a good job of sort of recapturing all of these theoretical movements and how they're intertwined. Kind of helps you see again how we've moved from expressivism, which is that first notion of truths inside the individual, let's get inside the individual, and then that led us to, okay, well, now that we're focusing on the individual, let's look at the writing process and how people write, and let's focus on process less than product, and then now let's even move that a step further and apply some cognitive theory. And remember that cognitive theory was also a way to empiricize composition. Remember the 70s and the 80s, composition is still really trying to carve itself out as a discipline. And the more it can align itself with empiricism and positivism, the more credibility it gains, so to speak, in the university and higher education's purview. So, okay, well, hopefully this is a good setup for this module. Again, do the best that you can. If you have any questions or you need anything, if you want to talk about any of these articles or any of the feedback or materials in the course, just let me know. I'm happy to do a face-to-face chat, phone chat, anything that you need. So just let me know. All right, have a good week.